For some time, we've realized that the Life Raft group is many things, but most of all, it's been a collection of love stories. It's been a collection of stories of husbands for their wives, mothers for their children, lovers for their soulmates, and so on. Yet despite all these love stories, the work of the Life Raft group does go on. The relentless work of trying to find a cure for this disease, of trying to advocate to the point of pushing things to the brink, of trying to care for people to the point of exhaustion. There are two stories that stand out, and let me tell you about both of them. The first is the story of a guy named Mike. So some years ago, I find myself in a community center in Nova Scotia. Mike has asked his friends to throw him a going-away party, and I arrived late in the afternoon, kind of the surprise for Mike, to find Mike sitting in a chair that his friends have trucked in from his living room. His daughter is sitting by his feet, and she's rubbing the soles of his feet and looking up at her father in a way that only a daughter can. Mike is weak, but in the background there's this music. It's the music of the 60s, my kind of music. And people are dancing, dozens and dozens of dancers, trying their very best to make this the very best of a party. And later that evening, something extraordinary happens. Mike gets up from his chair. Takes him a while to do that. And he walks over to his wife, and he asks his wife to dance. And everything but the music stops. And the two of them go on with their dance. Late at night, I find myself sitting at Mike's side. Mike is propped up in a hospital bed by a picture window. And we talk long into the night, holding hands. We talk about his life and his fears and his loves. And finally, it's time to go home. And as my plane begins to descend into LaGuardia Airport in New York City, Mike dies. And the memory of his last dance carries me home in my car that night. Fast forward, and we're in another hospital bed. This time it's a hospital bed in my guest room, and my Anita is lying in it. She's been on Gleevec for 16 years. She's getting a little bit weaker, and her body has been assaulted by so many things, by hypertension, by recurrent infections, that it's hard to understand, how she can go on as she bounces from hospital to rehab facility and back again. And finally, she makes me promise. She makes me promise to her that no more hospitals, that whatever happens will happen in our home. And so life settles in around this hospital bed and around a bunch of equipment in our guest room. We have nurses' aides, and they come every morning at 8 o'clock, and they stay for 12 hours. And then I take over. And I'm guided by, by a feeling of love and a feeling of commitment and a feeling of affection that is hard to describe, that I'd never felt before, not to that degree. Sleep helped, and the fact that Anita never complained. Although sometimes I think she kind of faked it. It was kind of a pact that we had where she pretended that she wasn't in pain, that she wasn't depressed, and I pretended not to notice that she was in pain and she was depressed. It's kind of like the story that parents make up for their kids when they talk about a tooth fairy, and both the parents and the kids really know that probably isn't a tooth fairy. And then in the middle of the night, usually around 2 a.m., I hear a voice, and the voice was, Norman, please come change me. Norman, come change me. And I would get up and go in, and Anita was in a diaper then, and I would change her. And it is about 14 months since I heard that voice. And God, I wish I could hear it again today. So part of the reason I'm telling you about this story, about the story of Mike and the story of Nita, is because we need your help. And I'm going to confess to you, I hate asking people to donate money. But I do it because we have work that is yet to be finished. We have people who are depending upon us to live out their lives, to live out their dreams. So I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for donating money to the Life Raft group. And I want to tell you that we've had enough last dances. Thanks.